Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sticky Notes Chat with me, Chris Noda, and Cory Lebson. We are not being joined by Amanda this week. She's taking a week off, which I don't blame her for in the slightest. Kind of a bit envious, but hey, you still got the two of us. Um, and this week we will be talking about, is it ever okay to do usability work or user experience work for free? So you may be wondering why we're even asking this question. Why would you? But there seem to be lots of opportunities. Oh, no, lots of examples of times when you could be asked to do work for free, and should you or should you not take advantage of those, or should you not agree to do those? Examples might be, um, for instance, a company who says, well, we're asking 3 or 4 different people to do some work for us. We'll choose the one we like best, and then we'll have an ongoing relationship with that individual. But that first piece of work, we're going to ask you to do it for free for us. Or another example is internships, where you may be paid pretty much nothing to do an internship because, oh, the experience you gain will be wonderful. Or the other one is, we're going to put your work in front of so many people. You should be honored for having the privilege of doing this piece of work. As you can tell, I'm kind of a bit tongue in cheek about this, but you should be honored for having the privilege of doing this piece of work. So, of course, you're going to do it for free. In fact, you should be paying us. So, yeah, Cory, you got any other examples before we go any further on this one?
Well, so I think of free, not only in the negative, but also in the positive, which is the free volunteer work, UX
Oh,
volunteer work one
yes.
does, the free, the perhaps free speaking gigs sometimes, and it doesn't mean like I'm a professional speaker, but it might mean just I'm new to UX and I have the opportunity to speak and I want to do it. There's that free. There's a lot of good free out there. So yeah.
So it's possible that free could be a good thing, um, for you. What's the balance? What is it that makes the free good rather than bad? Because I mean, I was being very tongue in cheek about some of those examples. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think it's ever a good idea. We'll cover this a bit more, I guess. I don't think it's ever a good idea to do work for free on the promise of exposure or something like that, if you're being promised exposure by somebody. But what you're talking about is kind of similar there, because you're saying, I want the exposure, so I'm going to go talk at that conference, even though.
So I mean, so free is a well, okay. So there's a whole bunch of thoughts here. Number one is that if I work for free, and I do work for free a lot, I want to work for free on my own terms. I
Mm,
want to say that is a good thing. I believe that exposure, adventure are currency. So if extremely high or even just high exposure, if high on the adventure factor, like this is a really exciting thing, then yeah, I'll work for free. That said, I need to earn a living too.
right.
Pay for the kids' college tuition, that kind of thing. But there's plenty of work. So I'll do my UX work, and that's not free. And I'll do my exposure, my adventure, and that's free. Or not just free, but low paid too. Um, but again, it's on my terms. It's like, okay, no, if someone says to me like your original examples, yeah, so you'll just do some basic work for us for free, and we'll
Mm,
evaluate you and whatever. Goodbye. I had
mm.
no interest. If someone says, we've got this exciting thing and we can't pay, but it's exciting or it gives you exposure or whatever, and I can put it on my terms, cool, happy, awesome.
So we're talking about this from the perspective of people who are already pretty confident in our roles. We've got enough background that people actually potentially seek us out to go talk at conferences, for instance. And so we can pretty much define our terms. But there was an interesting comment already from Lacey Hereford, who said it's expected of juniors to help build a portfolio. That kind of scares me. I mean, maybe it is expected. Is that a fair expectation?
Well, so this is what I would say is, um, yes, junior UX people do need to build a portfolio.
Hmm.
Often that original portfolio comes from coursework. Um, it also could come again on your terms.
Hmm.
You work for, or there's a nonprofit that you really that's important to you. So
Like, for instance, what Sam's saying, volunteering for free.
yeah, exactly. Like it could be a nonprofit. It could be a faith-based community. It could
Mm.
be, anything where that's just particularly meaningful to you. And again, on your terms, you say, hey, thinking in research, I would like to practice doing a usability study. I've looked at the courses on LinkedIn Learning. I've got some knowledge. I've got some basis. Can I do it for you? Can I do an evaluation? I'm a junior UXer.
Mhm.
Maybe you have a mentor also kind of giving you a little extra guidance on your terms. You can do something for free. You feel really good about it because it's volunteer work that's meaningful.
Mhm.
Which, by the way, probably want to add that to my adventure and exposure is
Right.
meaning. Our search for meaning. When you can get meaning from work, or from your volunteer work, all the more so. So again, your terms.
In that situation, I'm almost inclined to say you're not doing it for free. You're doing it for the expectation of some other benefit. The volunteering is like, maybe I would have donated money. I don't have money. I'm going to donate time and knowledge instead. Or for instance, the benefit of being a junior UXer and having that portfolio piece, which makes the difference in whether you get a job or not. That's something where you're not really doing it for free or on the promise of exposure. You've made that conscious decision, like you say, okay, adventure or some kind of other reward, or search for meaning. Again, that's back to, I don't think either of us is in the position where we're like, oh crap, we need to get a portfolio together quick. Where can I find the experience from? But yeah, I can see that being an issue. Just to be clear, in my life, I've never actually had to create a portfolio, and I'm really glad that I never had to find the content to put in one. A lot of my client work is under NDA, so I couldn't have used that. So yeah, where would I have found it from? Maybe I would have done that volunteer work or that thing that really sparks some excitement for me in order to get that work done. There's another side of it. So I mean, again, so here's Trevor. Trevor's saying do it for personal projects or for pro bono work.
Yes, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, and I mean, a lot of the stuff I do for myself, I'm not being paid for it. It's because I enjoy it. Whether I'd actually be doing UX stuff in my spare time just for the heck of it, I don't know. I would probably not be. I'd be doing something else, some other creative pursuit. But pro bono work, again, same kind of thing. It's not. I guess there's a marginal differentiation between pro bono and volunteer. I mean, well, that might be where you are in your career. I think you can call it pro bono when you've done more stuff in your life, but otherwise you're volunteering. And
Well,
then this, for instance, don't forget about that. This is from Lacey again. Don't forget about the privilege of volunteer work. If you have to have enough money to do it,
I
and
would.
that's an interesting thing, right?
Yeah, okay. So first of all, you know, all my life I've done volunteer work of sorts. Some of that volunteer work is it was related to UX,
Mm-hmm.
UXPA, for example. Some of it is
Mm-hmm.
not. It's community. I'm a community emergency response team. Like local things as well. And I would say volunteer work, first of all, is not 40 hours a week. No matter what. I mean, when I was in college, I was working on a crisis hotline. I was
Mm-hmm.
volunteering on the ambulance. I
Mm-hmm.
was spending maybe 15, 20 hours a week of volunteer work in addition to being a full-time college student. But then I've always done things like that afterwards. And only in the last decade has that volunteer work tied into UX, actually, to be honest. But I would say that work should never become your life, unless you want to on your terms. Like, when in the last 10 years, actually, a lot more of my volunteer work has dovetailed with my UX activities. Again, on my terms. I still do some community volunteer work, but a lot more of it has been in the UX field,
Mm-hmm.
because I've just been kind of it's just been, where the volunteer work has led, maybe less meaningful in some ways in terms of kind of, the save the world kind of thing, but also helping people in my profession. But either way, it's been meaningful to me. And so I would say that no matter what, you do your job, you do what's going to get you paid, and I certainly am doing that. I mean, I'm working, let's say 40 to 45 hours a week on average. But then, there's still like 10 plus hours a week that I can still volunteer. And it's, maybe for me, it's the same as watching a TV show. It's not paid work. Therefore, I'd rather be doing something, that I find meaningful than watch 10 hours of TV. I could do anything. I could do anything, but that's what I choose to do. So it all can be done if you choose to, no matter where you are in your career, and no matter whether you want to tie that volunteer work into UX or not. But absolutely, you can tie it into UX if you choose to, and then you're doing UX work for free.
Yeah. So that's if you choose to. What about these situations then where there's either an expectation that you'll work for free, or there's some kind of lure for working for free, like, oh, you'll get exposure? What would you say? I mean, both of us have this kind of icky feeling about it, I think. But why? What is it about that makes it different from choosing to do it?
Well, so I remember there was a consulting firm that I worked for, a large consulting firm I worked for, 12 years ago, and they said, we want you to do a mock exercise. We'll spend a day doing the mock exercise.
Right.
You're going to demonstrate your skills. The mock exercise actually was truly just to demonstrate my skills. They weren't making any profit off of it. It was just fine. So I did it. I got the job. It was good. All was good. I didn't feel taken advantage of. They wanted to assess me, and that's the way they chose to assess me. And as a new employee, and all good. However, if a company is going to make a profit off of you, either because they're a consulting firm and they have other work, or you're working in-house and they're selling a product, or really anything like that, the company can be taking advantage of the person. You never, and that icky feeling is, I'm being taken advantage of. They are making money. They are making money off of my efforts, and that's where it's like, what? Why? Like, don't you have any moral compunction about doing this? So that's where it gets really yuck.
Yes. Yeah. I personally, I have the same feelings about it. It's like, what do you really want to be associated with a company who would do that to you? And sure, in this current job market, you might be thinking, I just need a job. I will suppress my icky feeling just to push through this process, just to see if I'm the person that they actually want. But I'm not sure whether that's actually going to help you longer term. Oh, sure. I mean, it's easy for me to say, right, I have a job right now, but it's not. I'm not sure it's going to help you longer term, because you're ending up working for an organization that's the kind of organization that will do icky things like that. And not every organization does. For instance, I know that it's actually. So interviews aren't necessarily the best way of working out whether you can do a job or not. Actually, watching somebody practice their profession is a great way of doing it, which is why I'm seeing a lot more now in job interviews. If you're a developer, then doing some pair coding with somebody. If you're a designer, then actually going through a design exercise. But typically, if you're doing that as a part of the recruiting process, you'll be doing it with somebody watching you, or you will be paid an amount of money to do that thing, even during the recruiting process. That is what an honorable company will do as part of the process. But yeah, I mean, just getting you to, sorry, Cory, say something.
Oh, no. I was going to say, is it just honor, or are there legal issues with bringing on volunteer labor to make a profit? And I'm actually not sure. I think that there might be, when it's not, you're not getting academic credit, and like kind of a long-term thing. I wonder if there's even.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not an HR lawyer, but I mean, enough people seem to be doing it that they can probably think of some loopholes to get them off the hook if they needed to. Oh, it's just part of the recruitment process. Yeah, I mean, but it's things like, I mean, a while back, it was some years ago, Huffington Post, for instance, wanted to redesign their logo, and basically the idea was, oh, we'll accept submissions, and if you're the lucky winner, you get to have your logo be the one that Huffington Post uses, and that's it. That's all you get.
Right. I mean, for something like that, it's, I have less of an issue with kind of a single logo one time. Really,
I kind of do, because they had the money, especially, and also, I mean, the HuffPost at that point was very much, all for worker rights and stuff like that, and they're turning around and saying, "Screw you." But anyway, that's beside the point. This was years ago. This was back in, I don't know, early 2010, 11, sometime around there. Yeah.
But to your point earlier about kind of if someone doesn't have a job right now and they want a job right now, and either they've lost a job or they're looking for the first job or whatever, it's a hard labor market. There's a finite amount of time in the day. So what can you do at that time? If you're truly working for a company, as an employee, but you're just not being paid, what you're not doing is looking for a job.
Right.
So
it's an opportunity cost, right? It's the cost of doing this work means you don't have the time to do work you could be doing, being paid for.
And what else you're not doing? You're not, watching those LinkedIn learning courses. You're not, reading good UX books. You're not reading UX blogs. You're not getting on top of your game, because you're stuck. In this job, not job, and if you're looking, then you look, and if you have extra time, funnel that time into things that make you feel good. Because, by the way, altruism, there's a whole philosophical, what's altruism? Altruism, I would say, doesn't exist. Even when you're doing volunteer work, it's because it's making you feel good. So do that stuff that makes you feel good, because that, that's a currency. That's a currency for you to feel good about what you're doing. But also, it's a currency. It gets you. It builds your knowledge. It builds your portfolio. That's the way to funnel everything together.
And that goes back to it being on your terms. The thing you said before about it being on your terms. So another comment that Lazy's made is most internships are unpaid. Nah, not true. Not true.
I have not seen. I mean, generally, I've seen when companies have internships, they're low paid, but they're not no paid, and they're low paid to the extent that that the market will bear. So I would be uncomfortable if a company says we have an internship and it's unpaid, unless they have students and those students are getting credit at school. In those cases, that is totally fair, because you're trading credit, like college credit, even high school credit sometimes, for that currency. The credit,
which to me is still a bit near, but yes, it's a trade. It's still there's a benefit. There's an on my terms thing there, and while it might not necessarily be something you have a choice to do, but it might be one of the best ways of getting credit under those circumstances. But no, I know there's.
Yeah.
And there's this idea that internships are unpaid, and definitely, I mean, I remember in the marketing space, it was almost like a fight to get an unpaid internship back in the 90s and early 2000s. I'm not sure if it's the same way now, but in user experience, it may be the case that lots of internships are unpaid, but not all of them. When I worked at Microsoft, we hired interns for summer or year-long assignments, and those were paid positions. They were relatively well-paid positions. And okay, that's Microsoft, but Microsoft isn't a high-paying organization. They pay about the 65th percentile because they've got other benefits going for them and a name recognition kind of thing. Sure, again, we're in a position where it might be harder at this current moment in time to find an internship. I don't think that's a reason for taking an unpaid internship, especially not unpaid in any way. Like, they're not helping you with accommodation, with travel costs, with anything else. Why would you be a slave? And for the experience isn't the answer. There's other things you might be able to do rather than the internship, or for the promise of a future potential job. Not sure.
I will caveat that. So there's been times when people have come to me and they say, I want to learn how to do user research. Can I participate in your next research study? Okay.
Yes.
And I'll say, okay. Um, they add no business value to me in that I don't abandon, having a logger available to take notes,
Mm,
but I have them duplicate effort. In
mm,
that case, I'm truly making no profit. It's a
mhm.
learning thing. It's a one-time thing. It's like participate in a study,
Right.
and it's kind of a mini internship in some ways. It's a project-based internship, perhaps, but I'm totally fine doing that because I'm not charging for their time, and I'm not gaining a particular benefit. I mean, if they have an insight or something, I'll say, "Oh, wow, thank you for that great insight. I
Mm.
didn't think about that." But by and large, I'm still expending the same amount of labor, the same
Well,
amount.
actually, I'd
Yeah,
say it's even potentially more for you,
it,
right?
it,
Because there's kind of a cost to you paying attention to two things at once. You're not just able to pay attention to the study. You're kind of you're doing your best to help mentor that individual at the same
right.
time. But that's
So,
because you're an awesome individual who's prepared to do that kind of thing. I think there's a difference between having somebody who's your paid slave, no, unpaid slave, versus
right.
somebody who's kind of, who you're trying to help through their career. And I'm not convinced that a lot of the organizations who have unpaid interns are actually trying to help you through your career.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we need to kind of understand the landscape of unpaid internships because, to be honest, in my world of, I've kind of helped some recruiters sometimes even look for interns. They're always paid.
Mhm.
I I actually don't in my mind have a good example, and probably it has not intersected my world. No one has come to me and said, "Hey, can you give me advice about my unpaid intern?" Unless it's been about college. When it's been about
Right.
college, then I have had those conversations.
Mm.
I even took on a high school intern, 3 years ago, because the school said we need mentors for our internship program, and I said, "Okay, sure." I put in probably that was like my volunteer time, in that case. But you know what? It was someone interested who now went into has I think is just graduated, in business. Um, but it's really kind of what they're getting out of it. What yeah how it comes across.
And we're being reminded again that we are talking from a position of kind of privilege. Both of us have jobs right now. Both of us are talking about not working for free because we have free time. We have the capacity to say, on my terms. Yes, and I don't think that there's any excuse for not paying people. I think that the concept of opportunity cost is one you have to bear in mind. This is it's something that you think about when you run your own business. Is if I take on this piece of work that this person wants me to do at a discount or whatever, then it's going to mean I can't take on another piece of work at that same time, which might be at my regular price. If you sign up to do an unpaid internship, that's then taken your time that you could have been using to do something different that might also be unpaid, but might be something that has more personal appeal to you, or to do an internship that would have paid, or to find a job or anything else. And sure, yeah, you can ditch that unpaid internship, and I wouldn't think twice about ditching an unpaid internship halfway through. If they're not paying me, screw them. Sure, yes, you're getting experience, but yeah. Uh,
And I mean, with the impact of COVID, and obviously kind of what everyone's going through. I mean, I totally understand as a parent. Is there less time? I mean, certainly for me, I know with all three kids home, both me and my wife are running less efficiently. I can bill less per day. I can
mm,
do less volunteer work. That is
mm,
true. And my kids are even a little bit older. So, but
mm.
but but that said, I think we're not just talking about like this year, but kind of
Right,
thinking
right.
broadly. Like it's not like a one-off kind of thing, but it's really kind of kind of thinking, where what's our philosophy, what's our approach, and I don't think that's changing. Even if there's less time this year, it doesn't change the fundamentals of I think what I believe, I think what you believe, Chris.
So I'm just, I'm getting scared. As a fresh graduate, they usually offer a 2 to 3 months or more unpaid internship full time. And after that time period, if they liked your work, they'll offer employment.
If it makes me uncomfortable, that's what companies that a company is doing that. Yeah.
There's no need to do that. If they do a good enough recruitment process, they can work out that your work is going to be good enough. I mean, okay, you might not have much of a portfolio to show them. That's not the point. During the recruitment process, any organization can find out if you are likely to be a good intern. One of the concepts of an internship is that, in my mind, you are helping that individual. The company is helping that individual as much as the individual is helping the company. Not paying somebody is not a way of helping them. That's
And internships can be low paid also. I mean,
sure.
that's fair because you're at the bottom rung and you get the bottom rung salary and you learn along the way. But
Yeah.
but to say no paid is very different than low paid. And I think that makes all the difference. Whether you say, well, I'm not being paid much,
Right.
but I am being paid. I
Right.
am working and getting compensation for helping a company do something and have no other intrinsic benefits to myself. Even if you do have intrinsic benefits to yourself, it's okay. But
Right.
but yeah, it's just different.
And does asking for unpaid opportunities almost discredit the value of a candidate right off the bat?
No,
No. I mean, especially not in this market. It's like, I want to work. It's like I want to do work. I will work for you. If you're in the position where you can volunteer yourself to do that work, that doesn't discredit you. That shows that you've got some initiative. If you're talking in an interview about a piece of work that you did previously that was free, you might want to have a good justification for why you worked for free. I think as well, it's almost like if nobody was prepared to work for free in these situations, companies would have to pay us, interns especially, right? But unfortunately, there's enough desperation out there that people will do it. I don't think there's a way around this. I mean, this is the ideal world situation, right? It's like, oh, let's organize, let's unionize, let's make it so that we will never do this, but it's never going to happen.
Well, so I mean, I would, if somebody said, hey, I really want to work at your company. I have time. I want to work for free for a month. Can I do that and learn? A company, it's not an advertised internship. It's just like, can I kind of shadow you? That I think that's okay. The company is not looking for an intern. It's again your terms. It's your terms to go to a company. If a company says we mandate that you will work for us for 2 to 3 months, and then we will decide based on your skill whether you're good enough, it's not on your terms anymore.
Yeah.
And that is the difference.
Yes, and that's an immediate red flag to me. It's like, why do you want to work for an organization who's prepared to take advantage of people like that? Not sure I do. Yeah.
But it's the advertise. I think in my mind, it's the advertisement of we have an internship. You will not be paid. We cannot offer. We're not offering you that intrinsic value there's no currency involved.
Right.
We can't pay you a small sum. And it can be a small sum. That's the key. We're not saying I want to give you, a huge, senior level salary to be an intern. No,
I wish.
it's a small sum, and that's what that's the demarcation.
So moving on slightly from this, being asked, this is a really long one. Whether it's even display on the screen, whoa, bang, we've gone. I'm up here. Could you please elaborate on how LinkedIn courses would contribute to portfolio building? I'm a student of some of the courses. They're fantastic from a training point of view. Well, thank you so much. I wonder if firms tend to credit them as part of a portfolio. No. What I'd say is use those courses to learn a technique that you then use somewhere, and use the results from using that as the content for your portfolio.
Right, and also kind of the question inevitably come up is how do you have UX knowledge? And if you say I have UX knowledge I did UX courses. I mean, I did LinkedIn Learning courses. I read some books. I attended these workshops. I listened to blogs. I read I read I read kind of the literature, and I understand technology landscape through those technology blogs and whatever.
You've still not told me the one thing I'm looking for. Yes.
But I mean, but then you say I've got this basis for knowledge. All the more so I have a degree, whatever. But even without a degree, I have in UX particularly. You have a basis for knowledge, and that is a thing that you should be talking about. It is not the portfolio. It is not at
Right.
work examples. It's not the narrative. But
yeah. So everything that you listed so far is the one thing I'm looking for when I'm asking interview questions is experience. And this is the other side of this working for free thing, right? You've told me about where you've learned your knowledge. You've told me about what things you listen to, what you read, what you do to increase your understanding, but you've not told me how you've applied that at that point. And so definitely that's the other side of things, is how have you applied this? And that's what a portfolio should be showing is, you've learned these things, now demonstrate that the knowledge actually went in and is going to help you do something. So how did you apply this? Internships are hopefully one way of showing how you applied things. Doing practical exercises yourself are another way of doing it. Class projects are another way of doing it. Volunteer work, especially if you've got a mentor who's a more senior UX person, is an awesome way of doing it. There are other ways that are not that are either paid or have the on your terms side to it. There are much better ways of doing things. The learning on its own, I would say, is not sufficient. That's why I guess we're having this conversation about working for free, is that people feel the need to work in order to have the experience, in order to demonstrate through a portfolio or through just interview question answers that they actually have practical applications for the knowledge that they've learned. I just feel that there are other ways of doing it than doing it for no money, for no reward, let's say. It doesn't have to be physical money, but no reward.
Like when we're having this conversation between us, we're actually talking from the kind of job seeker, junior UXer perspective. In some ways, it's also a conversation with the companies that we need to have, which is if you're an employer, think about what the I guess the appropriate salary is for someone who will be helping you, but you're still going to have to put time into, and it's going to be much lower than an employee with that that elusive 3 to 5 years experience or what have you. But so think about it. Say, okay, you know what? This is a minimum cost of living that someone can live on, and this is what I'm going to put into it to help them, and this is what they're going to help me with, and it's all good. But it's not unpaid.
And that's the difference, right? It's there's I guess it's a question again of who benefits from this. As an intern, you're benefiting, hopefully. But as an organization, are they benefiting more? I'd like it to see it being more equitable. And I also have a horrible feeling that the unpaid internships also tend to be the ones at companies who don't really care so much to have an intern program as such, one which is actually designed to get the interns that they have through a course of learning and also an opportunity to demonstrate their experience. I'm going to do that. When I was at Microsoft thing again, but when I was at Microsoft, we had an intern program, and the interns would be they'd sit with the team, they'd work with the team, they'd do real work, they'd kind of be mentored through that work, but then they'd also have things that they did as a group, where there were learning opportunities, there were sort of opportunities to socialize with each other and to share their learnings. There's a real program around it, and you could tell that Microsoft actually cared to help these individuals through their learning path, as well as getting actual benefit from having them around. I mean, obviously, the benefit to Microsoft was this is an awesome long-term interview with these people. I knew at the end of an internship who I would work with on a regular basis and who I wouldn't. So I knew who I wanted to invite back for a full-time position.
Right, and there's also kind of that balance too. I mean, there was, you can say, well, we're going to 50% of the internship will actually be like in-class training, we're going to do whatever. And that factors in again to the salary they get paid. I mean, again, they should be paid something, but if they're only working like 40% time and they're in a learning school kind of school, see what school kind of concept.
Right.
Where they're getting something, then okay, then salary is commensurate with that to a degree. Again, folks still need to have a minimum viable cost of living,
Right.
but it's all fair. It's still fair. There's still a currency being exchanged, and that is good.
So there's so what's Nancy saying? I think internships could be unpaid, but it should be more of a shadowing situation, part-time. This is kind of what you're talking about, Cory, with your high school intern, wasn't it? They shouldn't have real responsibilities. I was a young unpaid intern, made an error, got ripped into by the owner and quit shortly afterwards. Good for you. Good for quitting. I mean, that's it. If you're not being paid, screw the company. No, don't screw the company. But it's like you owe them as much as they've invested in you, right? And hopefully it's a two-way situation where, again, you're learning something as an unpaid intern in those situations. But that's not a long-term viable way of doing things, especially not if the internships are more than I did work experience when I was at school, high school. But that was so I could see what work was like. And the company that I was with were actually investing a lot of time in just having me shadow them. That's not the kind of internship I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the kind of thing where you're experiencing work how you would be working if you were a full-time employee.
Right. I mean, I think that the differentiation is if you are replacing a full-time employee or a part-time employee, whatever, with what you're doing, such that they're just saving money, and again, presumably they're making a profit off of your hours or your product, and you're not receiving any of that profit. That's really kind of the standard, I would say, and under the assumption that you are adding a fair bit of value to what they're producing. If you're not adding a fair bit of value, and it's really about them helping you, and the understanding is you're not going to produce that much. They certainly, like that example, they certainly shouldn't be saying you made a terrible mistake. It's like, oh, okay, this is an awesome learning opportunity. But again, it's got to be about them helping you. I guess then we're looking at terminology. What defines intern versus novice UXer or junior UXer, right? Well, if you're saying, well, intern is the one that really adds no value, and we're schooling them, that is different. I mean, I'm not saying no value, but it's really about helping them, not helping the company. Then this like learning school that happens to be on site is different than I'm the employee surrogate that just doesn't get paid.
Right. And that's I think that's a good distinction. If the company is investing a ton of time for no real return, that's how they're paying you, potentially. If you are giving the company return, you need to be paid for that capacity that you've just added to the company. You've become an extra pair of hands, an extra brain. That should be rewarded in some way other than just exposure or experience. Yeah.
I mean, it's all currency. I mean, it's all currency. And even 20 plus years into my career, I know that not all currency has a cash value.
Right.
And I live my UX life like that. But it's all currency. So what is the currency? What are they, and what do they receive, and what do they get, and what do you as the intern receive, and what do you as the intern receive and get? No, sorry, receive and give. What do they receive? What do they give? What do you as the intern receive? What do you give? And make sure that there's parity that's appropriate.
And so Sam's saying something, a startup, you wouldn't expect to work for free at Amazon, but a startup maybe you would. Well, not for free. Again, there's other currency. If they care enough, equity in the company, right? There's a startup, an early phase startup. Somebody feels that they have value as an organization. So if they think that you're worth having around, why aren't they giving you some kind of stock in the company, some kind of equity in the company?
Right.
I mean, you might not want that because then it creates this kind of longer term commitment, because now you kind of feel that you're partly responsible for the continued success of the organization. Maybe you only wanted that kind of short, quick piece of work, but yeah, there's still other things they can do to pay you.
Right. I would say, with a startup, presumably a startup ultimately is about making the founders, have the awesome product that's going to get them fame and fortune.
Mm-hmm.
So it's no different than the Amazon, who
Mm-hmm.
was a successful startup that got
Yeah.
fame and fortune. But it's no different because it's it's commercial.
Mm-hmm.
There's your work is helping them towards their fame and fortune of new products, new services, new whatever. But it's different if you have like a volunteer community that's helping people and has no aspirations for fame and fortune. They're just around to help people. Then you're volunteering along with them. Great, wonderful. But if you're volunteering and the rest of them are hoping to get fame and fortune, or stock, or future very valuable stock options, that's very different.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. Then maybe this is what you do. You project yourself 10 years into the future, and you say, was the exposure worth it? Was the experience worth it? There's these other 9 people who are at that startup who are now multimillionaires, and I did all that design work for them, or I did all that user research for them back way at the beginning, and oh look, I'm not a multimillionaire. So was it fair? Was it equitable? Probably not. You gave a bunch of investment at a very early phase for not getting that return. I mean, I know there's like so something that I should probably bring up on the screen is, I love this. It's this catch-22. You need experience to get a permission to get a position, but the way you get experience is through either internships or volunteer work, which are unpaid. So how do you get around that problem? And I don't think that's actually, I don't think it's a dichotomy like that. I don't think it's that you have to do one of those two things to get experience. There's other ways of getting experience.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would throw in there that it's a real problem. It's a real problem that a lot of UX jobs start. We need 3 to 5 years experience. That seems like 3 to 5 years, of course. But what about 1 to 3 years, or even said 2 to 5 years? What about the first 2 years?
Mm.
It's a real problem in the industry, and I could say, as someone who has pulled in kind of certainly subcontractors, if not employees once in a while. You know, it's really hard as an employer to say, I'm willing to take someone early on because I don't have the time necessarily to put in to like this kind of full-time mentorship kind of opportunity. And a lot of companies do feel like that. And well, I do take on kind of project-based interns. I never feel like I have the time to take someone fresh out of school, kind of as wearing my employer hat. As my volunteer hat, I volunteer and I help people have conversations all the time.
Right.
But as my employer hat, I don't. And it's a real problem. It's something that has not been solved for. It doesn't mean that you give up that you kind of give it all up to say, okay, well, I'll just be an unpaid intern, because the other thing about being a volunteer, if time and finances allow you to do that, if you're a volunteer, you've got the intrinsic value, which is the feel good kind of part. If you're an intern unpaid, you're getting the same amount of money as a volunteer. Theoretically, you're building your portfolio, but are you really? And so it's super fuzzy in that regard about where you're saying, okay, this is going to add value and this is not going to add value, and this is going to make me feel good and this is going to help my portfolio. But again, it comes back to that fundamental thing is, are you helping someone and they're making a profit off you for your free labor, or are you doing something to feel good about yourself? And again, that's in my mind, that's the decider.
So Nancy's saying she volunteered to do something but got paid in trade by pickles and jam. Sweet. Well, fair enough, right? It's something else. I'm also being called to task with saying there are other ways to get experience. I still believe it's true. I believe that you do not have to resort to an unpaid way of doing this. An inequitable unpaid way of doing things. I feel that you can find some kind of equity either by doing something that is close to your heart, which you will also enjoy doing a whole bunch more and resent a lot less, or by finding something that has a paid opportunity behind it. I know. Right now, it's horrible out there, and maybe you just suck it up and do it anyway. But where there's a will, there's a way, I'd say.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think to your earlier discussion, kind of about looking back, looking 10 years, and I'd say even looking 1 or 2 years. I my world is very framed by emotion. That's why I've done empathy classes and things like that. And what I'm thinking about is not so much kind of value add sometimes, but how am I going to just feel inside
Yeah.
about the thing I've done? Will I feel good? Will I feel happy? Because I know I'm going to feel something. And I think that, I mean, as a consultant, I think that about client work. I'm like, if I take on this work and I work with these people who I know are super grumpy and nasty, am I going to feel good about it even like a month down the road? And there's times I haven't felt good just because the people weren't necessarily the nicest people in the world. And then I was like, well, this client is really nice and they can't afford quite as much, but I know I'll feel good about it. But there's just so many things about you feeling like, how am I going to feel? How am I going to feel about working for free? Am I going to feel like I've done something good in the world? Am I going to feel like I helped myself tremendously? How am I going to feel a year from now, 6 months from now? And at least, in my mind, that's kind of often how I frame a lot of my decisions.
And that's probably a good point to leave this on, because I think that's actually ultimately what it's about. Is if I feel like I can suck up this free internship, get something good from it, which benefits me longer term, maybe I do it anyway. If I feel like they're actually taking advantage of me and I'm going to resent them forevermore, maybe that's when I say no thanks and do something else instead. Yeah. It's a sucky world out there for right now. If you're trying to get that elusive experience, I'm glad it's not me doing that right now. The system is broken. It's not good, but the system's going to carry on being broken if we carry on using it the same way as we've used it so far. I think. Yeah, go ahead.
Ray of hope. On the global level, yes, absolutely a sucky world. However, if you had to pick an industry to be in, it's still a very strong industry. There,
oh hell yes.
And nobody should give up hope because there are jobs, there are paid internships, there are opportunities out there, and it's just look hard and do your best. I think there is good treasures to be found in the way people work. So.
And that is an awesome. That's an even better point to leave this on than the previous one. So yeah, don't give up hope. Start just working through those opportunities. Work it out from a feeling level as well as from a just a purely analytical level. What's this going to do for me in the future? And hopefully that'll help you out. Okay, that's it for this week. We will be back next week talking about counterintuitive ways that you can improve your user experience role. So yeah, but next week it'll be all three of us again, won't it? I did write an article on why you should never work for free. So I'm going to post a link to that in the chat. It'll also be on our website, which is stickynotes.chat. If you want to stay in touch with us, please do either through the website. Let's see if I can even put up a little thing on the screen. Here we go. Yeah, so the website is stickynotes.chat. You can tweet at us at stickynotes.chat. You can email us, chat@stickynotes.chat. Also, if you tag something with the Sticky Notes chat hashtag on LinkedIn. You'll find us. If you follow me, Chris Nutter, if you follow Cory Lebson, you will also be given a little flash on your LinkedIn when we go live. So yes, join us next week, Thursday, 10 o'clock in the morning, Pacific time, 1 Eastern time, to talk about counterintuitive ways of improving your UX practice. Thanks, Cory, so much. This was a kind of a fun one. A bit emotional, lots of stuff in the chat this week. So yeah, I'm going to go through afterwards and see if we did answer everything. I hope we did. But thanks everybody for watching. If you're not watching us live, if you're watching us afterwards, you missed out on a good opportunity to ask questions and involve in the chat. Watch us live next week. Okay, till next time.
Okay, bye.